Hey, what's up guys? It's your girl Kia and I'm back for another video. We are back for episode 2 of the Shiny Happy People Duggar documentary, and I learned a lot from recording my first video, so this second video is going to be done a little bit differently. I kind of blocked up my notes to make it a little bit easier for, me to kind of just have a natural conversation with everybody who's watching. So the episode 2 is called Growing Up Gothard, and it starts off with the whole Josh Duggar situation. So we left episode 1 with that. Now we're getting back into it on episode 2. And it comes out that, he was touching his sisters, but his parents kept making it seem like it's just a little over the shirt petting while they were sleeping. It's not that big of a deal. It wasn't, molestation. It wasn't the R word. Great. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, he was a boy being boy. He was a boy being a boy. He was curious about girls and experimented on, not with, his sisters. And I think a lot of Americans and people who really love the Duggars and thought they were a sweet, wholesome family just thought, oh, he's just so sheltered and he's growing up so fundamentalist that's why he did that. He was really curious and blah, blah, blah. Everybody made excuses for him because they wanted to love the family and really didn't know Josh. I mean, Josh is the cute, quirky nerd on the show, and he didn't look like the type to do that. But we've always learned, especially from Law and Order SVU, that the person who's usually molesting a child is somebody that's in their close circle, a family member, a close family friend, someone that child's familiar with on a regular basis is usually who's doing it. Somebody that no one would ever suspect in a million years. But everyone just thought it was that. Come to find out, he was also on the website Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison was a site that you got on when you were trying to find somebody else to have an affair with. That's specifically what that site was for. And on that site, he met Danica Dillon, who was I want to say she was a porn star, but could have been a stripper. She could have been a myriad of things. I don't know. Doesn't matter. He paid her hush money to be quiet about them having a sexual relationship and having an affair on his wife, because he's married to Anna at this point, and she was pregnant at this point when he had this affair. And Danica does an interview, and she basically says that, when I slept with Josh, it was like being raped. And that already to me is just like, so this boy has no sense of respect for women at all whatsoever. And it made me think, well, what did Anna go through during their sex life? And I don't know if anybody else ever thought about that, because when you look at the Duggars, you don't think about sex. You think about like two Barbie dolls who don't really have body parts. They just smash together and then look, a baby's made. I mean, because that's how they acted. So it makes me wonder what Anna went through during her sex life and her wedding night and all that kind of stuff. If he's, molesting his sisters, which, by the way, we come to find out, and I think it was more than that. Jill Duggar doesn't really talk about it, but she says, I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to talk about it. But the way everybody else in the documentary made it seem, including her cousin Amy, it was more than that. So it makes me wonder what his sex education was, and we'll get down to that. And so they next go into the Bill Gothard of it all, the Bill Gothard teaching. And we see a lot of people coming to the screen now who have been abused and wanted to speak out, regardless of the consequences of what they went through when they were in IBLP. I'm going to mess these letters up so many times, so let me scroll up on my notes so I can say it right. The Institute of Basic Life Principles, IBLP. Say it with me now. IBLP. I want to make sure I say it right. And these people really were traumatized by their time there. There's one girl which I thought was really interesting and maybe a little funny, and I'm not laughing at her, I'm laughing with her, but she was saying how her parents got into IBPL when she was 8 years old. So she had already been familiar with school, and now she's taken out of school to be homeschooled. She's in the basement with her brothers with, this makeshift desk and all this kind of crap. And she's like, what in the honky tonk crap is this? Which I think any kid would be like that. I went from having a teacher and classmates and a desk with a cubby hole, and I maybe got a locker, and then I've got a teacher teaching, and we've got a TV, and we've got this, and we've got that, to now I'm just in the basement with my brothers reading these stupid workbooks that don't make sense, and we will get into that as well. So Bill Gothard apparently isn't a pastor. I guess he just seems like a public speaker who maybe just adapted the Bible to what he wanted. It just doesn't make any sense. He never had a church. their churches were kind of like, you would go to these conferences, you would listen to the conferences, and then you would take the information back to your church. And he would kind of travel from place to place. I think eventually they got a headquarters, but it seems like they used a lot of Bible teaching, but then it was morphed into what Bill Gothard wanted, and it became the, IBPL headquarters, nothing to do with God. It seemed like they took a lot of Bible verses and just turned it into something, which is very odd to me. The main part of IBPL is authority, and we mentioned that in video 1. It's all about authority. It's God, husband, wife, children, which honestly it should be God, husband, wife, and children on the same level. That's what it seems like. It's not, IBPL is not saying that. IBLP is not saying that, but that's how it seems, that everybody is just under the husband and he can kind of dictate everything that you want. And there was a lot of rights that were taken away from women and girls and everybody else, and there was nothing you could really do. And I say everybody else meaning, Amy, for example, is the cousin of one of the Duggars. And even though she's not in IBPL, it seemed like she just kind of hung out with her cousins and wanted to be respectful of her uncle. When she was in that household, she was under Jim Duggar. And it makes me wonder, what actually did Amy go through? Because it doesn't seem like she ever converted, because she did go to school. Her mom was never in, so I can't say she was out. So that's an interesting story. So let's talk about the homeschooling of it all and how that is entered into IBPL. So the homeschooling movement, which I thought this was very interesting because I didn't know this, was that homeschooling was started in part because there was a lot of white evangelicals who did not want their children to be a part of integration of schools, meaning Black people going to school with white children. They didn't want that. So to keep their kids kind of pure and safe, they started homeschooling. And in the Bill Gothard world, he says that he went into the mountains with, 30 other parents, and they came up with this whole homeschooling program to make sure that these kids get this wholesome education. And they called it the Advanced Training Institute. They use something called the wisdom booklets, which is 3,000 pages. I put in my notes as 3,000 pages of garbage. 54 wisdom books. And each week you would focus on a category, and that for that whole year. And it had things like the character qualities. And Bill Gothard really preached to people that if you just went through these booklets, these wisdom booklets, all 3,000 of these pages, if you just did this, it's the equivalent of a high school diploma, and it's almost the equivalent of a pre-law degree. You'll be able to do anything you want in the world. You're ready to set out and just be smart and do it all. But the interesting part about this is there is no educational value in any of these books. It's mostly teaching women how to be wives and boys how to be husbands, but not adults. It's very weird. It's based all on the Sermon on the Mount. I didn't look up what the Sermon on the Mount was, and I'm a Christian, and I was like, how do you make a whole curriculum on the Sermon on the Mount? What they would do would take these different passages and parables and then wrap them around, a lesson in the book. And that one parable would be able to teach you all these lessons at once. And that's not how education works. There was no math or science or English or social studies. The entire curriculum is just based on Proverbs and Bible verses and information from Bill Gothard. They would go, there's a museum called the Creations Museum, I think is what it's called. And it's not the science that we all know. It's the Bible science of how God, put Adam and Eve on the earth, and then there was a great flood. And apparently all the fossils that now exist on the earth, yeah, there's fossils. Fossils are great, absolutely. But all the fossils in the world came from the Great Flood. Your hands are just full of atoms. There are no bones. There's no tissue here. There's no muscles, just atoms that are moving around in the skin. It's just, a lot of it is nonsensical and it poorly researched. It just looked like it took the wisdom books and said, we need to base this as much off of God as possible, whether it is accurate or not. And it's funny because Michelle Duggar in the show was saying how it's backed up by science. Her voice is annoying. If I wanted to listen to Minnie Mouse after she sucked on a balloon of helium, I would go to Disney World and do that. Like, I live in Orlando. I could easily go to Disney World and do that. But her voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me, and we will get into that too. Another one of the people who had a bad experience in the program said he had a friend who never learned anything past fractions, because fractions is all you need when you're a woman, because you just need fractions to cook. Why else do you need math? Like, what is math for? So it was really a world of, you don't need anything valuable, because all you're going to do is have babies and listen to your husband. All you're going to do as a man is command your wife and be a father. There is nothing else, which makes me wonder, how are a lot of these boys who are in this program, who are fathers, how are you taking care of this quiverful full of children? If your only education is a homeschool education from the wisdom booklets, isn't part of the Bible verse supposed to be that husbands are supposed to protect their wives and children? Well, how can you protect and provide if you have no education to do that? Also within the books, it just basically is a world of no. You can't do this, you can't do that. You know, you can't wear this type of clothing, you can't wear this type of hair, you can't listen to this type of music. And it starts to kind of bring up the racism of a lot of fundamentalist groups, fundamentalist Mormons, fundamentalist Christians, is that being Black, having any type of Black influence is bad. They actually say in the documentary, rock beats are from the satanic rituals of South Africa. And that's the same kind of things they say in Mormonism, that Eve mated with the beast. I'm trying to remember this right. Eve mated with a beast, and that's how Black people, Africans, became to exist in the world. It's all racism. Anything that's not pure white is apparently just bad, and that's racism. I'm sorry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So then we go into, like, what fun stuff can little kids have? Because there's a lot of little kids in this IBLP, sorry. There's hundreds of them, because each family has like 9 kids or 10 kids, or in this case, 19 kids, 15 kids. There's hundreds of kids. What do these kids do for fun? They do nothing for fun. Nothing for fun is allowed. They have their own board game called The Commands of Christ, which even the name alone just sounds like a terrifying game. The Commands of Christ. So, it basically just has, the pit of depression and the pit of anxiety and all these pits of hell that you fall into if you don't follow the commands of Christ. Horrifying board game. And they're not allowed to play with things like Cabbage Patch Dolls, Barbies, Winnie the Pooh. And it was starting to make all the kids terrified of the world. But let's have an honest discussion. They said in the documentary, they say Barbie was a harlot. I don't know Barbie in real life. I know she's a doll, I'm just saying. But whoever she was made off of, why are we giving little girls a doll that looks like a pinup girl? Like, how did that become a thing? I am not agreeing with IBPLs just take all the fun away, but it is kind of weird to me that we give little girls a Barbie doll where she is, a blonde bombshell, basically, and say, this is little girl, this is who you can play with, this is fun, go. It seems like a man designed her. She's always wearing stilettos, she's got torpedoes for boobs, she's got a tiny waist, she's got hips and legs for days. It just seems, I get their whole thing of don't play with Barbie because Barbie is shaped inappropriately, I guess. I don't know. And I could see how having a Barbie in the house full of boys could make them tempted. But they said Cabbage Patch dolls were made from warlocks. What? Cabbage Patch dolls? The big fathead dolls that just don't really do anything. They're kind of sewn together, but their heads are plastic and their hair is yarn. Cabbage Patch dolls are adorable. I don't care what anybody says. They also said that Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh glorifies depression. I don't know if Eeyore glorifies depression. I don't think he was made to be like that, but I think it was just supposed to be a fun. Actually, I don't know what Eeyore was supposed to be. That's another one of those weird ones. What was Eeyore supposed to be in a child's mind? He was depressed and sad about everything. There's not one thing that made Eeyore happy. I don't understand what Eeyore's point was, but I also don't think Eeyore was telling kids it's okay to be depressed. I think he was just a cute, wonky character in the movie or in the TV show. So, but again, for this group of people, for kids in ATI and kids who are in this movement, everything is bad, and it kind of makes them terrified of everything around them. If simple toys aren't good, simple little toys aren't good. If they're going to send you to hell, then anything could send you to hell. So, like I told you, we were going to get back to this. Michelle Duggar's voice is annoying and infuriating and nobody likes it. It's this quiet little, You just want to listen to mommy because mommy loves you. And, I had to go talk to God and have to talk to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's annoying. I don't care what anybody says. I know some people appreciate it because she's so womanly and so sweet and so cute. It's not sweet and cute to have an adult woman talking like a child. And in, this movement, they're talking about that meek and mild and quiet spirit, because that is what a proper woman is. That is what a good wife is, who's raising her children. She is meek and mild behind her husband, and she is just sweet, kind, and perfect. She bakes, she cooks, she raises the kids, which technically she doesn't raise the kids, by the way. And I'll skip to this section right now. I'll wait because I want to go into a little bit more. Let's keep on this. But this section is basically about how the women dress and how the whole, being modest takes it to a whole new level, to a Mormon level. The dresses are pilgrim, and the proper way to wear your hair, it should be long, it should frame your face. And they actually have a book of showing all the proper hairstyles. A center part, not cute. An afro, like what I have right now, is not cute. Just wearing your hair bone straight, no curl, no wave, not cute. And it shows the Duggar girls, because throughout this documentary, it shows how the Duggar girls applied this. And it shows them getting their hair. And I think they were getting perms in their hair, which I always thought that their hair was how girls do like the wet and wavy thing. Like you put some gel and you crunch the bottom, but it looked like they were given perms, and the perms just never caught properly. So they just was weird, wet, wavy hair. It was very, very ugly. It just did not look cute at all. But that was them trying to give their hair more curl, keep it long. And one of the girls actually said, my dad likes long hair. That's great. Your dad should like long hair on your mom. It shouldn't be that you're getting long hair because your dad likes long hair. That's just very creepy to me. And they also teaching the girls that they should not set eye traps for men. And this is where it sets up with that no matter what a woman does or a man does to a woman, it's always a woman's fault. If the woman is sexually assaulted, she brought it on herself. If she is molested by her brother, what does she do to deserve that? If a man winks at her or smiles at her, stares at her, it is 100% her fault. It has nothing to do with the man not being able to control himself, being disgusting, being lecherous. It has nothing to do with that. It's all the woman's fault. And so, in the documentary, they call it that they learn how to slut shame women very early on, because it's had like a little game in there saying, show what the wrong, neckline is. Show what the wrong length of skirt is. Show what the wrong, where's the split? Should you have a split? Should you do this? Should you do not that? And you have to figure out very early on what's inappropriate and not appropriate. And even the little kids, little Duggar boys, if they saw a woman who was dressed inappropriately, well, what they deemed inappropriately, their sisters would yell out Nike, and they would avert their eyes and look at the floor. And again, that's putting it on a woman, not on you, for maybe just, being inappropriate. It's the woman is inappropriate. Let's see. Oh, falling to her whoredom was a line, and these are on the wisdom booklets. Some of this stuff is not in the Bible. This is all in the wisdom booklets that we're learning this stuff from. And it had a line of falling to her whoredom, but anything could be whoredom according to Bill Gothard. A woman staring at you too long could be her whoredom. A woman with, again, the middle part, anything could be whoredom. And there became such a huge fear of sex, but there's no education on it to give boys the proper education on good touch, bad touch, maybe, or what to do with your wife or with your girlfriend, or what's okay, what's not okay, what do your body parts do, when you should be concerned about a body part. It's just all this lust and lechery and perversion and all these negative aspects around sex, which to me made it seem like I never get to do anything bad, but sex is really bad, and just because you're making it sound bad makes it sound more fun. That's how it seems to me from, I guess if I was in those shoes, it's almost like people are saying, don't drink. Drinking people get all crazy and wild and this and that. It's like, well, I want to feel crazy and wild once in a while. I wonder what that's like. Let me take a drink. So pornography, everything is porn. And that's in a lot of religions, Muslims, which I brought up before, fundamentalist Christianity, some regular Christians, not regular Christians, but, mainstream Christians, Mormons, fundamentalist Mormons, everything is porn. Leaflets in the in the newspaper porn. I know a lot of my friends' brothers, and even my good friends now, and we're grown women, our brothers used to like the JCPenney catalog, because in the middle of the JCPenney catalog, like a section maybe this big in the middle, was all lingerie. And it wasn't even like lingerie that's really slutty and inappropriate. It was just lingerie, like bras and underwear, and they had the model girls in it. And that section also had the bikinis in it, so all the boys would flip to that section. But that's not porn, you know? And it's back to the everything will send you to hell. If a woman is wearing a skirt that's not all the way to her ankles and you happen to look as a boy, you're going to hell. If a woman has a short sleeve shirt on and you look at her arms, you're going to hell. If you play with a Cabbage Patch doll, you're going to hell. And to me, how can anybody live like that? How can anybody be happy or satisfied with life? Life can't just be all about getting married and having babies, and that's your life for the rest of your life. I could not do that. There are fun things out in the world. And the Duggars actually had a huge bonfire that got rid of everything worldly, including Disney. Some people actually had Bill Gothard come to their house and bless their house and go through their books and movies to make sure it's always inappropriate, which again, to me, is insane. And to most people, it's insane. You should be able to control yourself, you know, reading a romance novel, because they bring that up. That to me is not porn. As an adult grown woman flipping through a magazine, and you see men who have no shirts on, it's fine. Reading a romance novel is fine. That's not porn as an adult. If you don't want to give this stuff to your young children, that's your choice as a parent. I get it. But calling it porn, not so much. Going through my notes. Okay, this is another thing I thought was really crazy before we go into, you know, our next section, is they were singing a song that said, the kids were on stage singing a song, and this is how the fear of everything goes, of put in hell to suffer for all time. Should never, it was just put in hell to suffer for our time was a part of the gospel song, and that should never be in the gospel song. I just thought it was interesting that they were having little kids sing this. And again, that brings up the whole fear of every single thing. So the weird part of this series that I want to talk about earlier, that I'm coming back to now, them saying that Michelle Gothard, Michelle Duggar was a mom. Sorry, somebody was pinging me. Michelle Duggar is a great mom. She was built to be a mom and a wife. But when you think about it, she wasn't really that much of a mom, because she only had to deal with her 19 kids really one-on-one the first year of their life. Once she would have them, take care of them for their first year, wean them, get off the breast, and then they would go to their new buddy, meaning an older female child. So that older female child would then start taking care of the kid and not helping out the mom. No. We're not talking helping. We're talking full on become that kid's new mom. Doing night feedings, taking care of that kid at night, making sure that kid get up for school, eat, follow directions. That child's now whole world went from their mother to now you. And that's weird for me, because you're forcing a teenager to become a full-time parent of maybe not just one child, or 3 or 4 children, because Jill Duggar was saying how she had a whole team, a buddy team. So she had 4 children. Let's call it what it is. Jill Duggar was raising 4 of her little brothers and sisters, and other people in the documentary said the same thing. And it kills me, because you don't want these kids to be teen moms. That's a complete abomination of having a teen mom, a girl getting pregnant, unmarried, and being a teen mom. But then you're also creating teen moms. Not the same way, but it's the same concept. The girl can't go to school. She can't take care of herself, because now she has 4 or 5 kids to take care of that she didn't even give birth to, that her grown mother is in the house. And apparently this is supposed to teach the girls responsibility, but an 11 and 12-year-old girl, do they really need to learn responsibility? No, they don't. They should be having fun with their friends. They should be going to school. Even if, you know, they're homeschooled, they still should not be forced to become parents to their younger siblings. So are you really having children because it's the right... It's hard to phrase it. It's interesting to me, because Michelle Duggar is their mother, but she doesn't seem to have a lot of hands-on in raising them at all. Once they become a year old, they become Jill or Jessa or Ginger's responsibility, or whatever kid that was next to have a buddy. It doesn't seem like she was a mom at all. It just seems like she was the baby factory that was making babies for Jesus in this quiverful movement. Like, that's all her job was, to push them out of her vagina, and then once they're off the boob, They're off to be somebody else's problem. And that's disgusting. Let's call a spade a spade. It's gross. So, all right, we are almost wrapped up with this. They do talk about the spanking on stage. I'm not going to go into that. It was very bizarre how he did it. You know, some people laughed in the audience because it does look goofy, but it's just, they were teaching people how to spank properly without getting in trouble by the authorities. And it was came up with by Michelle and Debbie Pearl. And it's training a child. He would say things like training a child is the same as training your animal. And he said it on Anderson's show back when Anderson Cooper had a TV show. And a lot of people in the audience were horrified, rightfully so. You know, physical punishment was everything. And in the Duggar household, they called it encouragement. And Amy was like, they would say it in such the sweetest tone of encouragement. Do you need encouragement? I think it's time for some encouragement, which is disturbing. The guy, Michael Pearl, actually even said, you know, psychological torture is even better than the actual physical torture. So it's abuse. We can call a spade a spade. This is 100% abuse. This is not teaching your child. This is not helping your child. It's 100% abuse. So the last section is about the whole courtship. And we hear a lot of the people, even the people who are coming out from the abuse, talk about how courtship works. And it wasn't dating. And I think everybody knows that courtship was not dating. It was, you're strictly hooking up with, not hooking up, that's not even the right word to use for this because it's so far from what it actually is. You're actually just meeting somebody so you can marry them. You're not getting to know them. You're not getting to know their family. It's really, he says, I'm ready to court you. And then maybe in a couple months, you guys are walking down the aisle to get married, or you guys are already engaged. It's a very quick process. And, you know, there was no education on sex. There's a little book that you get apparently. There's no kissing until the wedding day. There's no education on what a wedding night should be to prepare a woman for, because your first time having sex is traumatic. That is something that your parents really should teach you about as a woman, that it's going to hurt. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to feel awkward. And we should, fathers should be teaching their sons, like, it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable for her. Your first wedding night is not going to be good. So you kind of have to go slow. You kind of have to pay attention and listen. And none of that is being taught. And then once you get married, you know, one girl, Tia, who on her wedding night, she basically said that she was raped 3 times by her husband and got pregnant right after. And after, you know, you have kids and you're being abused, you're forced to stay. And when you're in these marriages, once you've waited your entire life for this person is now your whole world. This person is now over your authority. That person also has a level of power and abuse over you. And a lot of these women are saying that, who come out have said that they've been abused by their husbands and their partners. And that there is no level to the abuse, meaning you could be abused as a child all the way up until you're a grown woman, until you're a wife. You know, you could have corner time, you could have any kind of abuse thrusted on you, and you have to kind of go with it because you were under the umbrella of your husband. And Floyd, one of the guys in the group, said that his father was sexually abusing young girls, went to jail, and because he was the authority of the household, got to come right back home. He continued to do whatever, and he continued to make the family's life a living living hell. And it makes me think, because in a later episode they show men in prison, you know, loving the IBL teaching. I'm going to keep messing it up, guys. I'm sorry. Loving the teaching. And it makes me think, so wow, we have these men in jail who could be dangerous, who could be harmful, who are now could go back home and adapt this teaching to, if they have wives or girlfriends, they get wives and girlfriends. And now they have a protected space to be into because they're under IBPL and they're the authority of their household, so they can abuse and do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. And this video ends with the Megyn Kelly interview. So Megyn Kelly actually interviews, I think it's Ginger and Jill, who get interviewed because they came out as 2 of the victims of their brother Josh. And they were supported by Mike Huckabee, and Mike Huckabee supported Josh, and the family kind of had to do these interviews, even if they didn't want to, and kind of rally around Josh and make sure that he's okay, which is nuts. And we'll get into the rest of it on the next video. So I hope you guys have been liking my review of Shiny Happy People. Episode 3 should come out on Friday. It might not. I'm getting better at this video dropping thing on the documentary. And we will go really into the whole Megyn Kelly interview and the Fox News of it all, and Mike Huckabee and stuff like that. So drop down in the comments. Let me know if you have any feedback or anything that I need to change. Do not tell me that I need to slow down talking. Guys, it's not something I can control. People tell me it all the time. I just talk fast. So learn to keep up. See you in the next video.